there's a difference between being in hustle mode and running a business, because when you're in hustle mode, to me, you're just trying to get by. It's chaotic. There's no systems, there's no organizations. And you can get by with that for so long, but eventually, if there are not changes that are made, that will come crashing down.
Hey friends, I'm Rosemary Lewis, your homegirl, and I'm so excited that you are here. I do not care what it looks like on Instagram or HGTV. This whole being a realtor thing is not for the faint at heart. In 2017, I quit my job as a teacher to follow my real estate dreams and quickly found myself overwhelmed and struggling. Fast forward to today. Not only have I been recognized as one of the leaders in our industry, I have actually grown a business that I absolutely love. I don't care if you're a brand new agent trying to figure out how to get started or a veteran feeling overwhelmed and just stuck. I was just like you, and I totally get it. Many times I wish there was someone that I could just talk to about all the challenges I was facing. And that is why I created this space just for you. Like best friends do, I'm giving you all the tea related to navigating and thriving in these real estate streets. If I can do it, guess what? That's proof that you can too. Everything's better with friends, so let's succeed together. Welcome to the Real Estate Bestie Podcast. All right, real estate besties, welcome to episode number 62. And I know I say this every single week, but legitly, this week I'm excited. Anytime I get to interview someone that I truly know in industry, that I consider a real life real estate bestie, it gets me super hyped. So let me introduce y'all to my girl, Tiffany Todd. Hey, Tiffany.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Girl, thank you so much for being here. Before we get started, I just have to I told you this a couple weeks ago when we just got on the phone and connected and caught up. But y'all, Tiffany is a former educator like myself, hence the title of this episode. We're going to talk about transitioning from education to real estate. But when I first got into the business, I want to say it was the first couple of months. I was just a few months in, and I went to like one of these realtor mastermind deals, but it was a big one. It was a few hundred people there. And I remember, Tiffany, getting dressed for this thing. And, my perception of real estate at that time was not quite selling sunset, but everybody just felt way fancier than I was. So I remember getting dressed to go to this thing, and I felt so discouraged because I was like, everything that I got looked like teacher clothes. And I felt like I wasn't going to blend in. You know how teachers, we got that look, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. We got that look. So anywho, I was at this thing and I finally, put on what I had. And when I got there was a panel of successful top producers. And on the panel was this bubbly, smiley face, and it was you. And one of the first things you shared was that you were once a teacher and now you were taking the leap and you have been an agent, right? So for me to see you on that panel in a moment where I felt so just like I didn't belong, just your willingness to be there just made me feel like, okay, there is space for me here. So I thank you for that, girl.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Very welcome. I don't think, well, I did know that a little bit. So thank you again for sharing that. Yes.
No, thank you. And we even talked about, that was like a do it scared moment, because you said that you started to not even be a part of that panel, and other times you've been asked to speak. But I'm like, no, you got to keep doing it, because I know for a fact that you helped me. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. So as we talked, was that last week or a week before?
It was a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Just this last one that I was on and I saw you there. I almost did not continue on with that because John Williams, he was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be like, I think close to 400 people. And I was like, what? Just kind of freaking out. And like I said, I almost did not go forward with it. But as I told you, I'm in this season of just doing things, like just doing it. I think my biggest issue is trying to perfect things. And that's the teacher part, trying to do everything right, know everything, instead of giving myself some grace, and just moving forward and doing it. So I'm glad that I did go forward with that panel, because since then, it's almost like been kind of like a domino effect of just doors opening, because I've been doing things that I typically would not be comfortable doing. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So I love it. Look, around here, I talk about doing it scared, right? And
Yes.
a lot of us, for many of us, fear. It's not the rejection or actually failing, but it's just the fear of doing it is what stops most of us from putting one foot in front of the other. So
Right.
speaking of that, girl, let's talk about your story and how you went from being teacher, like how your career was there, and how you transitioned into the wonderful world of real estate.
So, okay, so I had been teaching. So, my first year, and many people don't know this, I was a pre K teacher. And so I
Mm.
taught pre K for 1 year, and I absolutely hated it. It wasn't the kids. You know how you find your niche, and the pre-K children, that was not, where I belonged. So I went from pre-K to high school. So I was teaching ninth through 12th grade, my first year out of pre-K, being a teacher there. And so I taught at Skyline High School for 8 years, and I absolutely loved it. Just being able, especially after my first year, I asked, and the teachers that I worked with, they were like shouting that I asked this. So I said, okay, next school year, can I teach all sections of personal and family development, which was a all freshman class? And they said, honey, yes, you can. And they were like, oh my gosh, we found someone. And I'm looking at them like, you all like to teach this class? What is the big deal? And so they were like, freshman. Oh no. And so me, I was like, freshman, yes, let's
Right.
embrace them, because for me, at the end of it, when they got to like their senior year, it was so rewarding to see them come from like these little fragile little babies entering into high school, and just how they blossom. It was kind of like a caterpillar going into a butterfly. And I
Hmm.
really like that. And so now, and so this does tie into real estate. So from teaching those children, they're now young adults. And so I've
Yeah.
helped several of my former students purchase a home. And
Oh,
so
that is awesome.
it's just been rewarding. But going back to what you asked, how did I transition from teaching into selling real estate? So after my 7th year of teaching, I had my youngest daughter, and I was on maternity leave for 12 weeks. And so
Hmm.
during that time, and I don't know if I was supposed to be doing this or not, I used to also do cakes. So I had a cake business on the side. On maternity leave, I was doing cakes and cake pops, because at the time, cake pops were really popular. They were new. And
Yeah.
what happened was, I liked being in charge of my schedule. I liked being able to take these orders and deliver them when I needed, and nobody was telling me what to do. So
Hmm.
I went back to teaching that next school year, but I had kind of made up in my mind that I was not going to continue teaching. And I also had a goal that I would teach for 10 years. And then at the 10-year mark, I would advance somewhere else in the education realm. That was my goal at that time. And
That's what
so,
most of us do, right?
yeah.
I say I want to be a teacher, then I'm going to go to admin.
Right, right. And
Yeah.
so that was my goal. And so it took a detour. So when I went back, so I still was doing my cakes. And then I started doing this multi-level marketing business that I absolutely loved. And I was
Okay.
interacting with people. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going to teach, but I still really didn't know exactly what I was going to do. So fast forward to February of 2013. The lady that sold my sister and I our house, she had put a post on Facebook that she was starting her own brokerage, and she was looking for 10 people to train to sell real estate. So I saw that post like 12 hours later. So my mind was like, okay, I'm not good in math. You have that voice in your head, girl, you're not good in math. You have no business even giving that a thought. But it was something that just stuck with me, like real estate. Then when you're in a kind of like a desperate situation of like, how do I get out of here? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
You're like kind of doing anything. So I reached out to her and I said, she's probably already gotten her 10 people. And so when I reached out, she said, no, I don't have my 10 people. And I think that you would be great at real estate. And I said, okay. So I was married at the time. And so I talked to my then husband and said, I think I may start selling real estate. And he was the type of person that would ask a lot of questions like, why, where this
Mhm.
come from? And all he said was, I think you would be good selling real estate. And when he said that, that was my green light. So that was
Right.
February 2013. It was all around like right before Valentine's or right after Valentine's Day. But February 23rd, that was a Saturday, I believe, or the 24th. I'm sitting in my first real estate class through Kaplan School of Real Estate. I signed up. I opted to do the Saturday and Sunday courses that they offered. And
Hmm.
I did that. My last class was March 16th, and April 15th, which is my birthday, I was a licensed real estate agent. So April
Oh,
15th, 2013. Yes.
you were not playing. So you went through, education was cool, but you got a little taste of that freedom, that time freedom that I
Yes.
know is very attractive, right, to a lot of us transitioning, especially. I know everyone has schedules, but that teacher schedule is something else, right? So you get a little taste of that, and it's kind of like the money is coming in. You go and you get licensed. So after you got licensed on your birthday, and by the way, April 15th, my mama's birthday was April 14th.
Oh,
Yeah. So y'all,
oh, Aries.
yeah, no wonder I'm drawn to you. But so after April, did you return back to school the next school year, or did you automatically?
No.
No.
So when it came time, you know how they have you sign your contract for the following year, they send it like in March or April or whatnot. I didn't
Yep.
sign. I told my husband at the time I was not going back. And I didn't. I resigned at the end of that school year. I had no idea what real estate really looked like besides what I saw on was HGTV out at that time? It was something I saw,
Yeah.
House Hunters or something.
Yeah.
So I had no clue of what I was about to get myself into. It was a true leap of faith where I just did it.
Wow. So our stories are similar in that, right? I want to say I was licensed like by the beginning of April, a few years after you. And I kind of did the same thing. I went into it knowing that if I was going to do it, I had to do it full time, not part time, just because I didn't have capacity, right? I was starting to check out with my student, well, not with my students, but with the school system.
Yes.
And I said, before I completely checked out and it poured into my students, I was going to be out. But I gave myself like, okay, but if you don't pass the test, that was like my thing. If you don't pass the real estate test, then you sign your contract and you're in it for another year. And if you do pass the test, you don't sign. And that's exactly what happened for me. And then I didn't return either. So let me ask you this, because for me, that was so different from who I had been up to that point. I was a rule follower. I was not a risk taker. Definitely, even though I had some entrepreneurial qualities, probably like innately, I was very much like you go to school, you get a job, you retire, you die. So was this different for you to take a risk like this, or is that kind of how you've always been?
No, 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 no. I am, for the most part, conservative, kind of, I can be like by the book, especially if it's unfamiliar territory. So, me doing something like that, that was not me at all. That I do not take risk at all. So, that was a true leap of faith. I don't know what this looks like. I had very little, and I do mean little money saved up. I was not thinking about, okay, what happens when, you're finished being paid out on your contract and you
Yeah.
don't have any clients. I was not thinking about that. It was, I passed this test, I'm resigning, and that's it.
Wow.
So, yes.
So let's fast forward a little bit. So you resign, so you teach through the end of the school year. So what is that, like June?
Mhm.
When do you actually like get into production and get into actual full-time real estate activities? And how long did it take for you to close your first deal?
So school let out in June. I was going into the real estate office in July. The first piece of business I picked up was in August. It was a lease customer that was referred to me by a lady that I knew. So I did that. So that was in August. And then I did not have another transaction or anything until the following January of 2014. And that was only $20,000 piece of land out in Lake Ridge. And
Okay.
after that, I want to say, so that was 2014. I did not have another closing until I want to say June or July of 2014. So it was months. Production for me did not really start to come until March of 2015. And I remember in February of 2015, like I started getting clients, and I remember calling my mother. She was at work, and I said, Mom, I said, I'm a real estate agent. And she's like, you been one? I said, no, I'm a legit. I have clients. I'm making appointments. I'm showing houses. I'm writing contracts. I said, I'm really a real estate agent. I'm doing it. And she was like, well, that's good. I'm proud of you. But it was then, and it's almost like this light bulb went off. And the reason I say that, and I think I've shared this with you, I'm really big on mindset and words, and because I read a lot of books that tell us how powerful our minds are if we really use that for our good. So I remember before things really started to kind of take off for me, before that, any type of transaction that I would even get my hands on, there was an issue with it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I think I've spoken on this. So there was an issue. And I remember, I was crying and I was just like, why me? And my dad, he was like, you know what? You need to go back in the classroom. Real estate is not working out for you. This is not it. And so I remember one day sitting in the office, I had gotten a listing and went under contract pretty fast, only to find out that before I got the listing, they had done a quick claim deed and there were some things on the title that came up.
Yeah.
Yes. So that, and I had had other activity before that, and there was an issue. And so I remember sitting in the office thinking, why? Like, what is going on? I was crying. And then one day I said, you know what? I said, God is setting me up because he's doing this so that as I get better in real estate and start selling, if there's someone else that has these same issues, I will be able to help them. I will know what I'm doing because I'm telling you, literally everything that I got my hands on had some type of issue or there was something going on. So to answer your question, I would say really about 2 years before production was really consistent, where I was having closings every single month. It wasn't like, 1 month and then another 2 or 3 months go by. So 2015, that was a shift. And one of my prayers prior to that had been, I said, God, if you allow me to be successful or have success in real estate, I promise, Lord, I will always help whoever it is that comes to me that needs help. I won't get greedy. I won't get big headed. I'll remain humble. I said, Lord, I know I can do this. Something is just happening here. And that's, like I said, mindset shift. And from then on, once things really got in the groove, it was like stuff was just coming to me. It was coming. I was getting referrals. And I became in the office, I would help, some of the newer agents. And I remember there was an agent, I'm not going to call the agent's name, would say, you always helping everybody. But that was a prayer. And I had made that agreement with God. So I couldn't, go back and be like, okay, I'm producing now. Forget what I said. So yeah. So that's
You have to be one of your word. That is amazing to me. And especially, I was just looking at a statistic. Now, I know where it said that in 2022, it was like in the first 6 months of the year, only 8% of realtors sold more than 4 houses, right? And I'm encouraged by your story. And I really want, our besties that are listening that are like, okay, it's just not clicking yet. I want them to be encouraged because I think you and I will agree that sometimes people do get into the business for the wrong reasons, or it's just not a good fit, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes it's truly not a good fit, but sometimes when you know it's a good fit, you know, this is not like me. Like, I'm not just going to quit my job and go after this thing. I know that I'm being called to this. I just have to see it through. I just wonder if you could go back now to that Tiffany in the grind for those 2 years who felt like giving up, who your daddy who loved you, you know, said, hey, maybe you want to reconsider. What would you say to her as she was just trying to really, really figure it out and feeling defeated?
I would, one, take a pause, and I would tell myself to keep going. I would give myself that pep talk, because that was at the beginning a piece that was missing. It wasn't until I sat in the office that day and just took a breather and said, okay, I got to figure this thing out. So I would, and there are some things that I would do differently if you would like for me to share. And that's more so having more savings put aside. And the reason I
Mm-hmm.
say that, I only had about maybe $3,600. That went fast. And as I've shared on other platforms, I racked up $30,000 worth of debt because I was, getting all this stuff. But going back to that Tiffany to in 2013 through early part of 15 is one, let's also have some systems in place as well. Let's
Mm-hmm.
get a routine in place, because at that time, because I didn't know and I wasn't really at that time business minded or knowing how to really run a
Yeah,
business.
yeah.
To me, and this was said to me quite a bit, and I had to reframe this is a hustle. This is a hustle.
Mm-hmm.
You're hustling, you're doing that. And so I think I was in hustle mode, not in business mode.
Yeah,
There's a
not building
difference.
business. Yeah.
Yes, there's a difference between being in hustle mode and running a business, because when you're in hustle mode, to me, you're just trying to get by. It's chaotic. There's no systems, there's no organizations. And you can get by with that for so long, but eventually, if there are not changes that are made, that will come crashing down big
Yeah.
time. So,
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. You just dropped so much knowledge and just so much of your experience. I know it's helpful for me to hear, and it's going to be so helpful for our besties to hear. I know that you shifted mindset, and we've talked about that here, and I've seen you talk about on platforms, and we've had a lot of one-off conversations. But I'm also sure that you had to shift some of your activities, right? You know, just deciding that if this is not working, because sometimes it's not working because we have to learn. I feel like a lot of times it's a will issue. Like, what are you willing to do to build your
mhm,
business, or a skill issue, right? Maybe you're doing all the things you know to do, but you need more support, more coaching, more guidance. Sometimes those small tweaks make all the difference. So when
right.
you think about it, what are some activities that you do now or you started to do then that started to contribute to more closings?
So the biggest thing was my sphere of influence, really utilizing them, because remember, I really did not have a lot of money. I was in debt. So yes, I was having those closings, but I wasn't running a profitable business because I had to pay off that debt. So what I say by that is utilizing my sphere, because that's free. So it was sending out, at the time, we had an intranet, and I would be able to market other agents' listings in this intranet, and then they had some other things that you could use and brand. So that was the biggest thing. And then the other thing that I did was the social media piece, was this Tiffany's Tuesday house pick. I was consistent with that. Every Tuesday at 11 o'clock a.m., that was released. And a lot of times, sometimes you can be doing something and not even realizing that it is working, because sometimes we want immediate results. And a lot of times in this business, when I've talked to other agents, they're discouraged, they're frustrated because they're wanting it immediately. And there's things that takes time when you put things in place.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
with that Tiffany's Tuesday house pick, people started like waiting on that. And I did not know until I stopped doing it. And people were inboxing me, where's your house pick today? Where's you want to see the house? And I was just like, oh, what? But that was bringing in business because people started sharing those house picks. And so I started getting messages on my Facebook real estate page. Hey, I saw your house pick. We're looking to buy a house. At the time, I don't think it was tagged and post, but somebody like reaching out or commenting in the section in there.
Yeah.
So those are my consistent activities. And then the other thing that I did at the time, my children, they were in school at A.W. Brown. So I got to know, like the teachers and the front office. So I would take, again, because I'm on limited income, little bags that had like candles or candy in it with my card attached. It was very simple. And like teacher appreciation, or different like classroom parties, end of the school year, I'm giving those to all of the teachers. So I kind of became like one of the go-to realtors at that school. And so I had kids on both campuses because they had two campuses. So I was doing that. And so that's how I started building my business, because I did dabble in the door knocking. I dabbled in the cold calling. I dabbled in the for sale by owners. But what I found was those were not my strong points. And everybody, is different. Somebody can go out there and kill it with cold calling and door knocking. For me, that was not a strength. What I noticed, because I am a people person, I like to interact with people. That's what was a lot more gravitating for people to come to me, because we built this relationship. They kind of got to know me. And so from there, they were comfortable either using me or referring business my way. That's how I got started. And to this day, my business is pretty much referral based and social media, because now the people that I follow, I'm always getting tagged in different posts when someone says, okay, I'm looking for a realtor, or I get a phone call. So that, and another thing, I have gotten better, because I did not start out like this, but follow up. I have gotten so much better of just following up, staying in contact with people, and not, more so letting it drop,
Yeah, letting them slip through the wayside. Yeah.
Mhm.
So what do you, we have a few more minutes. I am just curious, because I know a lot of people struggle with that, or looking for strategies to streamline it. What does following up look like for you?
Right. Okay. So it depends. Like right now, I have two people that are looking to relocate here. So that follow up looks a little different. So we have where we follow up on the 22nd of every month, and we're just checking in. They are on email campaigns. So I can go in and see if they're marking stuff or whatnot. And if I notice that they are starting to be a little bit more, or have a little bit more activity in there, now I am going to follow up with them before that 22nd of the month, because that means they're like something may have changed, and I don't want to miss out because I'm waiting on this date. Now, with regular referrals, people that are referred over to me, if they are a year out, we may not follow up as much. However, I'm still,
you don't want to overwhelm them.
Right. And so I'm still staying in contact with them. I like to do video messaging versus, constantly sending a text, or I may send an email. Most of the time, it's video messaging. Hey, just checking in. You came across my mind. Let me know if we need to make changes, or if something has changed with you. And it's just very simple. And sometimes, like a lot of times, we become friends on one of the social media platforms. So if I see that, maybe their child has done something, or something has happened, there's been an event, then I'm going to reach out. Hey, I saw that, your daughter just finished pre-K. Congratulations, or, something. So it's not, I don't want to come off as real estate breath, just real estate.
All the time.
I want them to know, I really do care. I'm here to build a relationship. So.
Yeah, I notice you, I see you, and just being human, right? And I think that a lot of times we end up discounting the value of that human connection. And because of social media, I can tell you how many people, I just went back home to Chicago over the weekend, and I saw somebody and they were like, I feel like I see you all the time. And I'm like, well, I haven't seen you in 5 years, but since
Right.
they see me on social, a lot of times we supplement that from actually interacting, especially in our position when we have our sphere of influence, we have past clients, when we have opportunities to connect. Don't just we so lazy, we ain't even liking the photos no more. We just look at it and keep it moving. But pick up the phone, like, girl, did you lose 30 pounds? Are you doing keto? Like, just these different touch points make all the difference in the world.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
it
No.
does.
No, I love that. Well, Tiffany, you have been an absolute joy. I think aside from the savings, because I believe that we get a lot of people listening to the podcast that are looking to transition, and specifically a lot of teachers. I think it's because I was a teacher. So just attracting that vibe. What would you say to them? What piece of advice would you give to them about mindset as they are transitioning? Because you hit on the head in the beginning. As a teacher, we're used to being the one with all the answers, right? We're used to being the one who can direct it. We want it to be perfect. And the reality is that nothing, especially your real estate business, will be perfect. So what piece of mindset advice would you give them?
To be a learner, oftentimes, if you're especially as a teacher, like you said, I guess we're kind of expected to know the answers. It's
Yeah.
okay if you don't know everything. And it's okay to seek or reach out for help. So be a learner and then just come in with open-minded. And I know people say be open-minded. That's such a cliche now. But when I say open-minded, and I know this intentional about my words, so I want to make sure I word this properly. Some people, yes, they can come in this business right away, start, jump, getting business. Majority of the people, it takes time. So when I
Yeah.
say open-minded, understand that it's probably not anything wrong with you unless you're just staying in bed or you're watching TV or you're at the mall or whatever. But if you're doing your day-to-day activities and you're tracking what you're doing, it will come.
Yeah.
You just need to stick with it, be consistent. Don't expect to be like Love It or Listed or whatever the other show is.
Or even just the people you look at online. I was telling somebody the other
Yes.
day, like, don't even be overwhelmed when it's like, oh, this person's a top producer, because guess what? Only 8% of people sold more than 4 houses. So chances are the top producer in your office may have only sold 1 or 2 deals. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not saying that to belittle what they're doing, but like sometimes we have to put in perspective what we're comparing ourselves to, and also to compare, if it would not be fair for somebody transitioning to compare themselves to you, right? Because you have a different level of time, you're in a different market, your network may have looked differently. So I like that, like be open-minded and run your race.
Yes, and stay in your lane, because I was guilty when I first got in, because I was going into the office pretty much every day. And there was a lady that maybe started a month after I did, and she was, doing it. And I remember the lady that was helping me, I was like, look at her. She came in after and she said, stop it. She's like, stop it. She said, and she did tell me, this lady, her connections are different than yours at this time.
Yep.
And so she was like, stop it. And so when I just focused on the activities that I had been and looking for other activities to do, it came. It came. So that's why I say open-minded. Just know, be consistent, look at what you're doing, and it will come. It will come if you do it like you're supposed to. So
Right. We have to have the will. You got to be willing to do the stuff, right? Like don't
yes,
just post on social media once every Tuesday and feel like, okay, Tiffany said it's gonna pop. Now it's a lot to it.
yes. And I'll add this, and I know we got to go. So even as real estate has changed since you and I first started, I'm even having to up my social media game, because as we know, people now, they start their search pretty much everything like online or social media. They're going to Instagram or these other social media platforms to see, what are you doing? And are you someone that they feel like would be a good match? So I don't know, we follow each other, but I'm doing like more reels and even including my kids more on my business social media, because I want them to see out, because my Facebook, that's been like personal as well. But my business Instagram, doing a lot more reels, content that also includes my kids, because I want them to see, like you said, I am human. I'm a mom. I'm a single mom, and so I have my kids, and I get it. Some days we're great, and others are not so great. So that's
Yeah.
where I've had to step up with my social media, not where it's not being like so robotic. It's a
Yeah.
little bit of both.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, girl, I appreciate you
Thank
so
you.
very much for taking time out of your day. And because I want to make sure that all the besties follow you, and if they have a referral, let us know what your social media handle is and what area do you serve, so that we can send some referrals your way to someone. I know you can take great care of your clients.
Absolutely. So I can be found on all social media platforms at Marathon Property Group. So that's Instagram and TikTok. They do TikTok. They have to put a underscore after the group, because group is Marathon Property Group is taken. And then I service southern sector of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which would consist of, your Cedar Hill, Red Oak, DeSoto, Waxahachie, Glen Heights, Midlothian, Mansfield. I'll do Lancaster, and then parts of Oak Cliff, Grand Prairie, and Arlington. Those are my main service areas.
That was it. That was it. Just
Okay.
where you serve and where they can find you.
Yeah, so that's where they can find me. So,
Okay. Well, girl, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. I appreciate you so much. And I can't wait to just continue to see what you do. I know we've talked about, you dabbling into education, supporting other realtors. So y'all never know. We have a real estate bestie retreat. Tiffany might be up there teaching y'all a little something. At the minimum, she's going to be on the panel. So there's that.
okay, well, thank you, Rosemary, and keep being great yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, besties. Talk to y'all soon.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this episode and you have a real life bestie that you think it would resonate with, y'all, do me a favor. Go ahead and hit that share button, because you know what? We are better together. Make sure you share the podcast, and I appreciate your reviews. I appreciate you giving me 5 stars more than you know. I'll talk to you next week.